You also said that no one loves the non-believers in the UK. Does that mean that if I had a non-Muslim neighbour that I should hate them?
Again, this is a statement that was taken out of context. And I would like to deal with this for a few minutes because it is multifaceted.
Okay.
As it relates to hating non-Muslims, it is the responsibility and the religious obligation for every Muslim to hate the disbelief of every non-Muslim. We hate the kufr and the disbelief of every non-Muslim. That is a religious obligation. And the Prophet told us, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, whoever loves for Allah and hates for Allah, gives for Allah and refrains from giving from Allah for Allah, then his iman is complete. So Allah hates disbelief, therefore we have to hate disbelief. So we hate the disbelief of the non-Muslims. But hating the non-Muslim itself, I never said that, because the Prophet himself was told in the Quran, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. You, Ya Muhammad, cannot guide those who you love, but Allah guides those who He chooses. This ayat, by the ittifaq, unanimously is agreed by the scholars of Islam, was revealed because of the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam who died as a non-Muslim. And the ayat said, you do not guide those who you love. So Rasulullah loved his grandfather, loved his uncle, loved relatives and his people who were not guided to al-Islam by the nas of the Quran, in this particular ayat. Another thing is that Allah has mentioned to us in the Quran, لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم إن الله يحب المقسطين. Allah doesn't make it haram or prohibited for you Muslims as it relates to those people who do not fight you because of your religion, nor do they expel you out of your homes because of your religion. Allah doesn't prevent you from dealing with them kindly and justly. And Allah loves those who are just. So this ayat is clear. If people are not fighting against us for our religion, it is a religious responsibility that the Muslims have to coexist with those people in order to call them to the good of al-Islam. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. You Muslims are the best people who have been brought forth for the betterment of mankind. How are we going to be the best people for mankind if we can't coexist with them? If we weren't into multiculturalism, how is it possible? It's not possible. In addition to that, concerning this particular issue, my relatives are kuffar. The vast majority of my relatives are kuffar. Many times the revert Muslims, they want to know, is it permissible for me to love my mother, to love my father, to love my relatives? And I always tell them, it's from the fitrah, the natural disposition that Allah has created us with. This one likes mustard, that one likes ketchup. You can't help it. You can't help but to love your mother and your father who may happen to be non-Muslims. So Islam doesn't prevent that. Allah has allowed the Muslim man to marry the Christian girl, the Jewish girl. If he married his wife who gave him babies, more than likely he's going to love his non-Muslim wife who's a Jew or Christian. So I never said this because it's not consistent with the religion. As it relates to the last part of your question, dealing with your neighbor who's a non-Muslim, we had a class that we specifically talked about the haqq of the neighbor, the huquq of the neighbor, dealing with issues in our own community, telling the Muslims the importance of having good behavior with our neighbors in order to spread al-Islam and to eradicate many of the misunderstandings that non-Muslims have about us. And from what we discussed is the statement of Allah in Surah An-Nisa, وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ. الْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ. Allah told the people, the Muslims, worship Allah and don't make any shirk with Allah. And be good to your parents. And be good to all of your relatives. And be good to the poor. And be good to those who are downtrodden. And be good to the neighbor who is the Dhil Qurba. Your neighbor who is a Muslim. Or the neighbor who is the Jar al-Junub. The scholars of Islam said the Jar al-Junub is the neighbor who's a non-Muslim. So the neighbor who is the Dhul Qurba can be the neighbor who is a Muslim, And the neighbor who is the junub is the neighbor who's a non-Muslim. And some of them said that the neighbor who is the Dhul Qurba is the neighbor who was close to your house, and the other one is the one who was far away from your house. So we have an ayat in the Quran that some of the mufassirun of the Quran said that the ayat and the word, the jar junub, is the non-Muslim neighbor. So Allah is telling us to be diligent and to give them ihsan. So this is something that I believe in and I call to. And it is a misquote, and part of it has been taken out of context.
Okay, thank you. It has further been alleged that you said an imam has the right to crucify an individual and leave him on the cross for 3 days. Did you say that?
This again is a statement that I said, but again, it's been misconstrued. I didn't say an imam. I said the imam of the Islamic State. The imam, the leader of the Muslims, like the Muslim states that we have right now, whether it's Egypt, whether it's Sudan, whether it's Kuwait, whether it's Malaysia, whatever the Islamic State happens to be, the imam of that state, the leader of that state, he has the right to implement what Allah commanded in the Quran in Surah Al-Ma'idah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the imam how to deal with those people who murder people. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned in the Quran, إِنَّمَا جَزَاءُ الَّذِينَ يُحَارِبُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيَسْعَوْنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَسَادًا أَنْ يُقَتَّلُوا أَوْ يُسَلَّبُوا أَوْ تُقَطَّعَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَأَرْجُلُهُم مِّنْ خِلَافٍ أَوْ يُنْفَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ ذَلِكَ لَهُمْ خِزْيٌ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَلَهُمْ فِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. Verily the reward for those people who wage war against Allah and His Messenger, and they spread mischief in the earth, is that they should be killed, or they should be crucified, or their hands and feet should be cut off from opposite sides, or they should be expelled in the earth. This is